It was the morning of February 23rd, 1946. A young school teacher from West Mansfield, Ohio, had come to her childhood home in Grandview Heights, which was only a 9-minute ride from Columbus, to spend the holiday weekend with her parents. It was then known as merely Washington's birthday and had been celebrated the day prior. She walked out of the home on West 3rd Avenue that Saturday morning and headed in the direction of the bus stop, which was located only a few blocks away. She had planned to go shopping in Columbus. Her mother had needed a few yards of fabric for sewing curtains and had asked her daughter if she could go to town to purchase them for her. Her mother would never see the young woman again. This story begins in 1930 when Michelle Celli and Ida Franceschetti decided to move their family from Italy to America. In the early years of the 20th century, the great exodus to the New World was providing most of the able working men in the small towns of the southern regions of Italy a chance at prosperity that many had never known. They were leaving in droves to join relatives or friends who had gone in earlier years and found accommodations in American cities and villages. In these empty areas which were left, only women remained, with their missions of raising children and taking care of the animals, while waiting for their men to return, or the letter requesting that they come to join them. The Celli family were originally from the Molise region of Italy and had all been born in Vastogiradi, which was a small town located near Agnone in the province of Isernia. There was Michelle Celli, the father and patriarch, who a year before briefly going to America in 1922, and along with his wife, Ida Franceschetti, had welcomed their first child, Lola, into this world. While gone in the New World, Michelle had stayed with his cousin, Florian Amiconi, who lived in Torrington, Connecticut. He would soon return home a year later, and the family would grow again by one when Lola's younger brother, Felice, was born in 1923. Ida had looked on as her father, Dominic, sister Gasparina, and 5-year-old nephew Anthony left on February 1st of 1921. The 3 immigrants sailed from Naples to Boston on board the ship Canopic. They had eventually ended up in Akron, Ohio, to stay at the home of Domenico Spognardi, Gasparina's husband, who had found work there. Just a few months later, on May the 10th, Ida's 25-year-old brother, Romeo, also left for America. He arrived in Ellis Island, New York, aboard the steamship President Wilson. He had registered as a doctor and was living with his father, Dominic. Ida had been left with her mother, Adelina, in Vastogiradi, where she fell in love and got married, quite young, to Michelle Celli, while waiting for her brother to send word for her and her mother to join them. The years would pass by as Ida went on sewing dresses for women in the village, when, finally, in 1930, she would receive a letter from her family. They had asked her to come and join them at their home on 1842 South Broad Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ida, Michelle, and their 2 children, Felice and Lola, left Vastogiradi with what little luggage they could carry. It had been snowing for some time, and the trip was made very cold by the mountainous region they lived in. They had been slowly traveling for 2 days, but eventually reached the port of Naples, where the steamer Conte Grande was waiting. They had sailed at night on Thursday, December the 11th, 1930. On the deck for Southern Italian third-class passengers. It would remain a very cold trip, and after 9 days at sea, they reached the dock of Ellis Island in the New York harbor. Gasparina and Romeo were ashore, waving white handkerchiefs so their sister could see them. It was December 20th, so close to Christmas Eve, and a very snowy New York day. The family had waited so long to be united once again for the holiday season. In December of 1930, the US Census was released. The count of the American people was 123 million. Compared to the count which had been taken 10 years earlier, there was an increase of 17 million. Almost all had arrived at Ellis Island as immigrants. They had gone through the legal process and very quickly became United States citizens. Ida and Michelle became US citizens as well. They had stayed a few years in the Philadelphia area, but soon moved their family a few miles from Columbus to Grandview Heights, a beautiful town in Franklin County, Ohio. Ida would continue to sew, while Michelle made his way to becoming a very accomplished carpenter. Through their sacrifice and hard work, their two children were able to attend the best schools in the state. Felice would graduate with a bachelor in chemistry and become one of the best researchers from Ohio State University. His sister, at the young age of 25, taught home economics at West Mansfield High in Logan County. She spoke 5 languages, was a very petite, 5 foot 5 inches, and 115 pounds. Lola was a very beautiful girl. Here is where the mystery of the red shoe begins. When Lola left that cool February the 23rd morning on her 100 or so yard walk to the bus stop, the unexplainable would happen. Lola was gone. She vanished into thin air, and even after 79 years, her disappearance is still shrouded in mystery. The detectives who worked the case would always assure the public that the case was never closed, and would say, "For us, it will always be an open case until some kind of solution is found." Those detectives are gone now, but those who followed in their footsteps echo the same sentiments. The case will be forever known as the mystery of the red shoe, because a witness who had passed by on a motorcycle said he had seen someone fitting the young teacher's description discussing animatedly with a man in a car on Olentangy River Road. During the fight, I saw a red shoe fly out of the car's window, the biker had told detectives in charge of the original investigation. And indeed, that day, Lola was wearing a gray coat, a gray hat, and a pair of red suede shoes with Cuban heels. With the evidence from the motorcyclist, the police took action and searched the area for the shoe, but none was ever found on that stretch of road. On February 28, 1946, 5 days after her disappearance, about 200 students from the high school where Lola had taught combed the banks of the Scioto River, along with staff from the Columbus Police Department. Lola's body was never found. It would later be theorized that the girl had fallen in love with a neighbor and fled the city with him and his child to live out the rest of her life away from her family. No evidence had ever been found to substantiate that idea, and the family had called it preposterous. And Inspector Harper of the television series A Cold Case, who has followed this case closely for years, said without resignation, Lola Chelly could be anywhere or nowhere, a victim of a crime or simply a young woman afflicted by the pangs of love. A case full of mystery, charm, and innocence.